How do you go about overcoming a poor credit rating and getting ahead and moving on? My name's Kevin Wright, and having spent over 20 years as a property finance broker with everything from simple buy-to-lets to multi-million pound development loans, I'm going to share with you how someone with imperfect, impaired credit can actually move forward. Sound interesting? Hey, stick around. Now, if there's one thing I've learned about mortgage lenders in all the years I've been brokering mortgages, it's that, hey, they're really picky. They've got a whole host of reasons that they can draw on to say no. To say, no, we're not going to give you a mortgage. Now, if you've got aspirations of building up a buy-to-let portfolio for your future prosperity, but you've got some sort of credit issue in the background, that's going to be a big barrier for you to overcome. Now, here's the thing I often say to explain how mortgage underwriting works. It's an exercise in the mitigation of risk. So mortgage underwriting is a filtering system. It's filtering out the good from the bad, the problems from the easy to manage. Now, the saying, leopards don't change their spots, works to an extent with mortgage lenders' underwriters. What I mean by that is if they look at someone's credit history and they see they're a bit ambivalent with how they pay and when they pay, that gives them a pretty good steer onto how they're going to treat their mortgage. In other words, if they don't pay on time every time on any credit agreement they've got right now, why would they change that behaviour if they were to get a mortgage? So mortgage lenders, underwriters scrutinise your credit report line by line. And what they're looking for is any blip, any time when you slipped up, any time when you didn't make a payment to a creditor on time. It's logical that if mortgage underwriting is a mitigation of risk, the mortgage lenders that charge the cheapest rates mitigate the most risk. So in other words, the cheaper rate you want to get on your mortgage, and hey, we all want to get a cheap rate, don't we? Expect the lender to be even more picky. So when you pay a higher rate, the mortgage lender lets a few more things slide by. You want the best rates, you have got to be squeaky clean. And what I mean by squeaky clean? Well, if you've got one missed payment on any credit agreement in the last 3 years, that's enough to get turned down by the best rated lenders in the market right now for exactly what I said. You want the cheapest rate, they mitigate the most risk. So if you're watching this and you're in that situation, let me tell you, you're not alone. There's a whole swathe of the population that have got impaired credit, in varying degrees, of course. Now, you don't watch my videos to get a message of doom and gloom. Hopefully you watch it for some inspiration in one way or another. So, for anyone with impaired credit, what's the way forward? Let's drill down and look at that now. Now, before we do that, I want to throw in one caveat here. I'm not suggesting that anyone takes on any more debt than they can responsibly cope with. Now, unlikely though it might be, if you were able to save up enough cash to buy a property outright, you think, well, I own a property now, lenders are going to lend to me. No, they're not.
Hey, have you subscribed yet? If not, click the button there. Oh, and that dingy belly thing there so you don't miss a new video every time I release one. Thank you. And follow me on Instagram too. There's the button down there. Thank you.
Because whatever's on your credit file still tells them, oh, you could be a problem borrower. We could have trouble with you. And remember, mortgage underwriting, mitigating risk, weeding out the potential problems so they don't have to deal with them further down the line. So even buying cash and then saying, hey, look, I must have some substance behind me. I've just paid cash for a property. Can I have a mortgage now? That probably isn't going to work. Look, we need to come at this from a different angle. Let's be clear on that. If someone did have enough cash that they could buy a property, and granted that might be in a cheaper part of the UK. Now, what would work is buying something that's dilapidated in varying degrees, buying it with cash, fixing it up, and then selling it on for a profit. You're building up your cash pot. Now, there's a game plan here which I'm going to come to. Now, that being able to buy for cash, even in cheaper parts of the country, is going to rule a lot of people out. And maybe you're watching this and thinking, hey, I'm out because I can never do that. It's good to think positively about it, but you've also got to bring some realism in there as well. So if that's not feasible, then there's still a way around it. As long as you've got a bit of cash, you need some cash, then you can use a bridging loan to cover the balance of the purchase price. You can even use it to borrow 100% of the refurb costs. Check out the video I did on that. Thumbnails here just to give you a guide. So if you can borrow up to 75% of the purchase, if you can borrow 100% of the refurb costs, and you just need a 25% deposit plus some money for fees, stamp duty and the like, suddenly it's not so insurmountable, is it? Now, whether you've got the cash or whether you're using a mixture of bridging and cash, it allows you to go for properties that are not currently mortgageable. And ones that are not currently mortgageable tend to be in less demand. They could have a seller that needs a quicker sale, and if you can marry those two up, you could buy it using cash or cash stroke bridging at a cheaper price, and that cheaper price allows you to make a profit. Now, if you can make a profit and put that profit back in your bank account when you sell the property, you're building your cash pile. If you repeat that as many times as you need to, you will be in the situation where you could buy a house for cash. Rent that out, and by the time you've flipped a few properties in this manner, enough so that you can buy a property for cash, whatever that blip was on your credit file has probably dropped off. Or if it's more than 3 years old and you've been pretty clean since then, in fact, you've been very clean since then, it doesn't have the same resonance with mortgage underwriters as it previously did. So you probably turned yourself from unmortgageable to mortgageable just by the passage of time. Time is a great healer, they say, and that certainly applies in this instance. Now, you might be thinking, well, I've heard of a bridge to let option where I get from the same lender a bridging loan to buy the property and do the work, and then just jump onto one of their mortgages once the work is done. Now, I've done a video on that too, so if you're curious about bridge to let, here's the thumbnail that helps you to search for that video. The key point here for people with impaired credit is that you need to get the mortgage at the back end of the bridge to let product, and you're still going to hit the same barrier that you would have done when it comes to applying to a mortgage. So bridge to let has got a limited usefulness in this area. Now, I see a lot of people and they're really impatient. They want to get 10 years worth of progress done in a year, if not quicker. But property is very much about playing the long game. It's about buying and holding property for the longer term. I participated in a Facebook post just this week where a guy had built up a portfolio over the last 30 years, hadn't needed to keep continually refinancing it, and increases in market values mean that he had a very low loan to value gearing. Now that gave him, the advantage of now that when mortgages come up for renewal, his cash flow would probably now, and we're talking 30 years here, would probably now per year allow him to pay off a mortgage and move to an unencumbered property. Now, once you've done the acquisition phase of growing your portfolio, you move into the consolidation phase of your portfolio, and this usually brings a change in priorities. It's not how many properties can I own, because you've already got all that you want to own. you've achieved your objective. When you've achieved your objective, you move out of acquisition and into consolidation. Consolidation is how do you eventually exit, or how do you plot your future? And usually there's 3 ways of paying down your mortgages to be left with an unencumbered property. I've done a video on that too, so here's the thumbnail to help you find that one. So I think the guidance I can give here is, don't be in so much of a rush. Yes, you want to build as fast as you can, but if you're going to make a career out of property, and whether that's full-time or part-time, the old tortoise and the hare story applies here. You can make much more sedate progress if you want to achieve your long-term goals. And an impaired credit history is one of those things where you just got to let time resolve it. Okay, so there we are. That's me done for this week. I'll be back next week with another property finance video. Check in then. Be good to see you then.
If you enjoyed watching this video, did you know every Monday morning at 8:30 I do a live Facebook Q&A. So if you want to start the week with checking out some answers to your property finance questions, click the link here.